Welcome in to the latest edition, a post-game edition of the Whiteout Report podcast here at Proline TV. I'm Marty Leap. I'm your host. I'm flying solo today, as you can now see. I am flying solo today. Dylan is not here with me today, but yeah, that's about as frustrating of a loss as you're ever going to see for a 3-5 football team. Penn State falling to Indiana, 27-24. On a game where, the Nittany Lions got the ball back, a little over 4 minutes to go, a chance to run the clock out, couldn't do it, punted away to the Hoosiers, who proceed to march 80 yards in a minute and I think 51 seconds, I believe, to win the game. And it's there's a lot of frustration, a lot of reasons why it's frustrating, as we will get to. But before we dive too deep into things here, as always, make sure you like, you subscribe, you share us. We appreciate all of you who have followed along with us all year, especially with this season not going anywhere near the way anyone had anticipated to go for Penn State. For those of you who continue to follow along here as we slowly but surely truck our way to the end of this season and a new coach for the Nittany Lions, we appreciate it. So again, like, subscribe, share, hit us with the super chats, hit us with the super likes, all those things. We appreciate all of it. But yeah, this was a game where I think all in all, you have to feel really good about Penn State's effort. I mean, I thought this was the best effort that we've seen from start to finish since the Oregon game. Last week in Ohio State, they played really hard in the first half, and it just, by the second half, they ran out of gas. That didn't happen today against, the number 2 ranked team in the country, a team that has been killing everybody. I thought Penn State honestly was the better team today. I thought they outplayed Indiana in a lot of ways. I mean, not that this, is the be all end all, but they had more yards of total offense. They had more yards passing. They had more yards rushing than the Hoosiers did. Penalties were equal, but the great equalizer in football, the Nittany Lions had 2 turnovers. Indiana had 1. And, as a result, that was pretty big because Penn State's 2 turnovers led to 10 Indiana points. You take those away, and in theory, the Nittany Lions would have been victorious on Saturday afternoon. Also, definitely give some recognition to not just the student section, but the Beaver Stadium crowd as a whole. I was very curious what this crowd was going to look like, how into it they were going to be. Beaver Stadium was pretty packed. I don't know what they said the attendance number was. I'm sure it wasn't quite as high as what they said. It never is. Excuse me. But the place was packed. It was loud. It was a great crowd. It was an awesome atmosphere. It's what you would expect from Penn State and from a Beaver Stadium crowd. So kudos to everybody there for that. Again, with a team that not only is it a team with nothing to play for, it's a team that coming into the year you thought was legitimately going to contend for a national championship. I mean, they started the year number 2 in the AP poll. Many people had them as their number 1 team. A lot of people are picking them to win the national championship, and for the season to go the way it has, and then for that crowd to come out today, I thought was just well representative of some of the things that make Penn State such a great job, such a great program, such a great place for college football. But as for on the field, I think you got to give a lot of credit to the coaching staff, Terry Smith and his staff, to the players as well, to come out against the Indiana team, 14.5-point underdogs. And again, it's not just that they're 14.5-point underdogs against the number 2 team in the country. Look at what Indiana's done to people this year, right? 56-9, 73-0, 63-10 against a very good, at the time, top 10 ranked Illinois team. They go on the road to Autzen Stadium and beat Oregon by double digits in a game that wasn't even as close to the final score. 38-13, 56-10, 55-10. Kurt Cignetti's Hoosiers the last 2 years have built a reputation of not just winning football games, but putting the pedal to the floor and just completely destroying their opponents. And that did not happen today. Penn State deserves a lot of credit for that. I thought defensively, this was the best game by far they'd played since the Oregon game. I mean, in the end, it's not going to look great because they gave up 27 points, including that game-winning drive at the end, which, we'll get into deeper detail on that drive because there was a lot there that I'm not going to put on the defense. It was just some ridiculous plays by Fernando Mendoza and his receivers. But again, Indiana got 10 points off turnovers on short drives. The touchdown right before halftime was gift wrapped to them by the Katron Allen fumble. The defense definitely played better than the final box score. And even then, against one of the best offenses in the country, they held the Hoosiers to only 3.5 yards per rush. They held them to just 326 yards of total offense. They're able to force a turnover in this game, which is something Indiana does not do very often, is turn the football over. and they were still able to force a turnover today against the Hoosiers. So, I mean, I thought, again, in my opinion, as a whole, this was the best game from the defense since the Oregon game, where, that game ended in a lot of frustration. But the reason Penn State nearly pulled it out in overtime was because the defense fought their tails off and kept them in it. I mean, Indiana was averaging over 9 yards per play coming into the game, averaged only 5.2. I thought Jim Knowles' defense was great. I thought the defensive line, excuse me, I would argue this was far and away the best game of the season for the defensive line. Maybe they looked better and had better stats in some of their non-conference games, but you got to factor in the opponent to go against the number 2 team in the country. And I mean, Zane Durant, for the first time all year, looked like Zane Durant. Denied Dennis Sutton was making plays all over the place. Uriah Fisher finished with 1.5 tackles for a loss. I mean, Dennis Sutton's one where if you look at the box score, 4 tackles, a sack, and a tackle for a loss. He played much better than that. This was the denied Dennis Sutton we saw in the postseason last year, who nearly helped carry Penn State to a national championship game. No, this was the denied Dennis Sutton I think people were hoping to see more of this year that we have not seen much of. He was tremendous today. I thought the young defensive lineman as well. True freshman Yvonne Kemajo was a guy you just kept seeing in on plays. On Indiana's final drive on the 1st and goal, Kemajo bats the pass down. Xavier Gilliam, excuse me, I apologize. Xavier Gilliam, redshirt freshman defensive tackle, I thought was tremendous today as well. And Uriah Fisher, I think this was the best game he's played all year, was constantly in the backfield. On Indiana's final drive, the play after the sack by Durant that started the drive, Fisher probably should have drawn a holding call that, may have really changed where that drive and in turn where this game goes. I thought he was tremendous. So tip of the cap to those guys. But I think for Penn State, the real story coming out of this one in terms of players has to be Ethan Grunkemeyer. Third start, as Gus Johnson put it on the telecast, baptism by fire for the redshirt freshman, right? He's first career start at Kinnick Stadium at night, second career start at Columbus against Ohio State, obviously, and then this start home against Indiana. So his first 3 starts, 2 were on the road, all 3 of them against teams currently ranked in the top 20, including against teams currently ranked number 1 and number 2. This was by far the best he's looked. And one thing that Dylan and I have come on here and talked about, we talked about after the Iowa game, we talked about it after the Ohio State game. He's played with a little bit of fearlessness that I think at times Drew Allard didn't have. He's pushing the ball down the field, trying to force it into windows, trying to give his receiver a chance to make plays. And we saw that at times today, right? Grunk 22 of 31, 219, a touchdown, an interception, which wasn't totally on him. I mean, it wasn't a great throw, but it hit Kyron Hudson kind of in the hands and the shoulder, batted up in the air. It was a goofy ball that Indiana came down with. And we saw the explosiveness there from the passing game that we had. And Kobe Howard, the true freshman, who all offseason, all through the summer, all through camp, we heard was making plays, was impressing, and then we never saw him. We never saw him until the Iowa game, and he started to become a bigger part of the offense. He had 3 catches today, averaging 14 yards a catch. Trevor Pena, probably his best game as a Nittany Lion, averaged 16.5 yards a catch with 6 for 99. In all, Penn State have 4 pass plays of 20-plus yards, and including an additional one, which was the 19-yard touchdown pass to Nick Singleton. So 4 of 20-plus, 5 of 19-plus, something we just have not seen a lot of out of this passing game in recent years. So it was good to see today. And again, I think Ethan Grunkemeyer, not afraid to push the ball, not afraid to give his receivers a chance to make a play. And we saw that again today. A lot of moxie from Grunkemeyer, a lot of trusting his skill. I don't know if Ethan Grunkemeyer is at Penn State next year. Really, with this roster, you don't know where any of these guys are going to be. But I am confident, and I have been confident in this since he was recruited. I liked Ethan Grunkemeyer coming out of high school a lot. Consensus 4-star guy, top 100 recruited, a lot of recruiting services. I am confident that wherever he's at in 2026 and beyond, he's going to be a very good quarterback at the power forward level, whether that's at Penn State or not. But he continues to just grow leaps and bounds with each start. I thought today, again, by far his best. His pocket presence was another thing that really impressed me today. He kind of felt it well. He knew when to step up in the pocket. He knew when to use his feet to move around, extend a play. I mean, if you look at the stats, he finished with 4 carries for -2 yards due to sacks. but there was a lot of times he used his feet to extend plays in the passing game, step up in the pocket, good pocket presence, good footwork, all of that on Grunkemeier's end. A real tip of the cap to him. Excuse me for that. And then I mentioned Nick Singleton briefly due to his touchdown catch. By far the best game of the year from Singleton as well. 10 carries, 71 yards, a long of 59. 2 rushing touchdowns, caught a third. He's now 2 touchdowns behind Saquon Barkley for the school record for career touchdowns by a non-quarterback. He's at 51. Saquon finished his career 53. Obviously, got to put the caveat in there. Saquon did that in 3 years, where Singleton's done it in 4. But A, that's not a knock on Nick Singleton by any means, and B, just kind of goes to show again that Saquon Barkley was truly a generational talent, and you could make the argument the best player in the history of the program, but that'll be something to watch the rest of the way. Is Singleton's going to break the record, especially in a season like this where you don't have anything left to play for other than trying to get to 500 these next 3 games, finish 6-6. As a coaching staff, you're going to make that a point of emphasis moving forward. Hey, Nick needs 3 scores here to break the record. Let's make sure he gets there. But really, it was good to see Nick Singleton play that way. It was fun to see Nick Singleton play that way. When he's explosive as he was today, he can be a really fun player. We saw it in the kick return as well. Averaged 25 yards a return, had a long of 33 that set up a Penn State score. So Nick Singleton today, if this is the version of Nick Singleton Penn State gets these last 3 games, they're going to be pretty happy. And Singleton will as well with what it will do for his draft stock to get him right back into the mix of being one of the top backs off the board this April in the NFL draft. But yeah, again, frustrating loss for Penn State, 27-24 in the loss against Indiana, in a game that quite honestly probably should have been an in-line victory. They just couldn't finish, and it's one of those where you change the coach, you can't change the team kind of deals, right? You took Penn State out of James Franklin. You can't take the James Franklin out of Penn State, if we're going to put it. This was a game they had a chance to finish it off. They didn't. That final drive, which we'll get into here in a second, very frustrating for Penn State fans, players, coaches, etc., to watch it unfold. But yeah, before we get in the final drive, once again, thank you for being here with us at the Whiteout Report podcast or post-game show. As you can see, I'm flying solo today, Marty Leap. No Dylan with me. So at times, if it seems like I'm rambling incoherently to myself, it's because in a lot of ways I am. But again, like, share, subscribe, give us a super chats, super likes, all that good stuff. Keep the channel going strong here as we get ready to wrap up the season. Only 3 more games to go. But yeah, that final drive from Indiana, one that, if this season was going the way everyone had hoped and expected for Penn State, that's a drive that would have gone down in the annals of Penn State history of utter and complete misery. That would be up there with Ohio State's game-winning drive at the end of the game in Columbus in 2017. That would be up there with the last 90 seconds of the Orange Bowl last year. But instead, it's just another gut-wrenching loss for Penn State against a top 5 opponent. So, your Penn State, you get the lead at 24-20 on Nick Singleton's touchdown run with 4:20 left in the game. Indiana gets the ball, immediately picks up a first down, then proceeds, thanks in part to a sack by Denai Dennis Sutton, as well as a delay of game, to go 3-and-out. After that initial first down, they punt it. So you take over with a little over 4 minutes to go, a chance to run the clock out, first down. Katron Allen runs for 7 yards, and you're feeling good. You're thinking, hey, they just might do this. Indiana's burning up their timeouts. And then things started to get a little hairy after Penn State picks up a first down. I thought, so they get a first down with 3:01 to go, and they run the ball. Katron Allen doesn't go anywhere, and Indiana uses a timeout. So they have 1 timeout left. You're facing a 2nd and 9. That's where I would have thrown the ball with Ethan Grunkemeyer. I think you could have caught them sleeping a little bit there. Probably would have given you a better chance at moving the sticks. Had you gotten 1 more first down, you probably win this game. Even if Indiana still would have gotten another possession, there would have been so little time on the clock. But they run it again. It goes nowhere. Indiana calls their last timeout. They then come out with a super conservative pass play which I understand you wanted to run a play where you're going to make sure you keep the clock rolling. I got that. So they run a little slip out to Andrew Rappaway, goes about 2 or 3 yards, runs the clock down to the 2-minute timeout. They punt it away. Indiana takes over with 1:51 to go at their own 20. But that third down, again, I get wanting it to be a safe play, safe pass play. You want to make sure it's an easy completion to make sure, if nothing else, you get it down to that 2-minute timeout with Indiana out of timeouts. But I would have looked, you had a lot of success today offensively, attacking the middle of the field. Trevor Pena's big day, a lot of that came from Penn State attacking the middle of the field. Khalil Jenkins was having a nice game, 4 catches for 40 yards. A lot of that was middle of the field. Same with Kobe Howard's day. A lot of that came from attacking the middle of the field. I would have looked to have done that because it would have given you a better chance of completing a pass that was capable of picking up the first down. And you can always get in Ethan Grunkelmeyer's ear before the play and tell him, hey, if it's not there, tuck it and run. Get what you can, go down, keep the clock running. Hell, if it's not there, just fall down in the backfield because we're going to punt the ball anyway on 4th down. Take a quote-unquote sack just to make sure we get to the 2-minute timeout. So I was not overly fond of the play call. I thought for the most part, this was one of the better games Andy Kotelnicki's had this year and what's been a really rough year for him as an offensive coordinator. But I definitely was not a fan of the play call there on that 3rd down. I thought they should have done something, to give them a better chance of moving the sticks. And again, you can tell your quarterback if it's not there, if your read is not there, tuck it and go, fall down in the backfield even. Just make sure you get the clock to the 2-minute timeout. Maybe that's nitpicking a little bit, but again, if you would have moved the sticks there, you probably win this game. So then they punt it away. Indiana takes over at their own 20-yard line after a touchback on the punt. 1:51 to go. And the first play of the drive, Zane Durant just shoots through there, blows it up, drops Mendoza for a 7-yard loss. And you're thinking, hey, they're going to do this. They're actually going to do this. Well, Indiana, to their credit, having the resolve of a championship team, Fernando Mendoza, starting with this play on this drive, may have solidified himself as the Heisman frontrunner coming out of today. Steps up in the pocket, fires a missile for a 22-yard gain to Omar Cooper Jr., moves the sticks, really settles things down for Indiana. I mean, at that point, after the Durant sack, Penn State has all the momentum. Again, Indiana's facing a 2nd and 17 from their own 13-yard line, needing to go 87 yards in 1:50. Beaver Stadium crowd is ready to erupt. I mean, it's going nuts. And again, just the resolve, that championship mantle of mentality of this Indiana team of Fernando Mendoza makes a great throw to Omar Cooper Jr., who kudos to him because he took a hit from Zakee Wheatley on the play and held on to the ball, moves the sticks. Also, want to give a tip of the cap to Zakee Wheatley, who it's flown under the radar because of the way the season has gone, especially for the defense. Zakee Wheatley, in what has turned into has to be a miserable final season of college football for him, has played extremely well. He continued to play extremely well today. So just, tip of the cap to Wheatley for putting together a tremendous season and what has been a very challenging one for him this year. Anyway, they make that pass, 22 yards. They get the first down. They spike the ball, 12 yards, get another first down. And this is where you start to see Indiana then really make some plays. There's a pass down the sidelines on, I think it was a play or two after that spike for about a 20-yard game where Mendoza lobbed it up and gave Charlie Becker, who just terrorized Penn State today. Charlie Becker, who Indiana needed receivers to step up due to injuries. Becker coming into the day had just not been a part of the offense at all. The sophomore, and he goes off for 7 catches, 157 and a touchdown, including some ridiculous catches, including that one on the sidelines on that final drive. While Davian Collins had tremendous coverage, and this was not the first time today where Davian Collins was in great coverage. And Becker went up and made a play. And, some of it just shows the difference between where Indiana's at right now, where Penn State's at, because for 2 years plus now, you've been sitting here pounding the table, screaming for Penn State receivers to just go make a play. And Indiana digging down the depth chart of receiver, their receivers made plays. And that was part of it. None was bigger. And then we'll get to the catch in the back of the end zone by Omar Cooper to put the game away. But Even when Indiana got down to 1st and goal, Penn State's defense kept fighting. I mentioned earlier, 1st down, Yvonne Kemajo bats the pass down. 2nd down, Mendoza gets hit by King Mack as he throws it, nearly wound up a fumble, and it flutters incomplete. Then on 3rd and goal, again, Penn State brings pressure. And people might question, I was texting a friend of mine back and forth on this, and I said, I keep bringing the pressure, because if you're bringing pressure, you're getting in Mendoza's face, you're rushing his throws. He hadn't been great under pressure on that drive really much of the game. I would take my chances, and Jim Knowles took his chances, and the pressure was getting home. And then on 3rd and goal, again, was Akee Wheatley had a really strong game. He could not have played it better. He is all over Omar Cooper, goes to give him a push towards the back line of the end zone. Watching it live, I thought his left foot landed out of bounds before the right foot came down inbounds. They replayed it. It didn't. It was his right foot came down inbounds a millisecond for the left foot land on the back line, which would have killed the play, made it incomplete. Just the ability for Omar Cooper to extend, go get the ball as he's falling out of the back of the end zone. One of the best safeties in the Big Ten, draped all over him in coverage on a 3rd and goal with 45 seconds to go and your team trailing by 4. You factor all of that together, and that's going to be one of the best catches you see all season. It's one of the best catches I've seen in a long time. Probably one of the best, end back of the end zone, sideline, however you want to put it, catches I've ever seen when you take into consideration everything else that was going on around the play. And it just, again, kind of epitomizes the difference between where these programs are at right now. When Indiana had to have a play, they got it. Even with Penn State's defense, getting him in Mendoza's face, pressuring him, hitting him around, their best defensive back in tremendous coverage, and Indiana went and made a play, which is something Penn State receivers have not done in 3 years. So they make the play, they make the catch, they take the lead with 45 seconds to go. And even then, Penn State still had a chance. They were only down by 3. Indiana squibs the kickoff, which I understood because Nick Singleton was having his best game of the season. He'd almost burned Indiana once on a kick return. So after they squib it, Keon Wiley falls on it. Penn State takes over the 36-yard line. Grunkemeyer eventually hits Trevor Pena for a gain. They get a offside penalty on Indiana. So they're able to get it to the plus side of the 50. They're able to get it up to the Indiana 48. But one thing I didn't like, and, I'm not going to harp on Terry Smith too much about coaching decisions because, again, he's an interim coach, but when Penn State had a 3rd and 5 at the 41 with 35 seconds left, and they hit a 6-yard pass, and they called their last timeout, I wouldn't have used my last timeout there because the clock was stopped. Again, it was a 6-yard gain, so you didn't have to go far to get on the ball and spike it and kill the clock. That's what I would have done, and that would have opened up the playbook a lot more as you're looking to get into field goal range, especially, again, on a day where your most successful passes, your best plays in the passing game, were exploiting the middle of the field, where Indiana's linebackers, who Dylan and I raved about on the previous show on Wednesday night, so tip of the cap to Penn State for being able to do this. Indiana's linebackers were struggling in the middle of the field on pass coverage today, and had you still had that timeout in your back pocket, you could have looked for one of those quick hitters across the middle to Dinkins, to Kobe Howard, to Trevor Pena, whoever it had been, for 12, 15, 16 yards. At that point, you're in field goal range. You're at least going to give Ryan Barker a chance to tie this thing. But Terry Smith used his last time out there instead of killing it with a spike, which I thought was just terrible clock management. But again, guy who's interim head coach, has never been a head coach before outside of high school football. Not going to get on him too much about that. And then after that timeout, they tried the deep pass down the sideline to Kyron Hudson, which I think the only reason they even tried it was they knew it was a free play because Indiana was offsides. Then there's a play that Ethan Grunkemeyer is going to be kicking himself over. He had Devontae Ross wide open down the left sideline. And, Ross is standing at about the Indiana 20, just wide open. There was not a Hoosier on the TV screen yet. So if Ross catches it, they're going to be easily in field goal range, chip shot range for Ryan Barker, and would have given yourself, a chance for a shot or two to the end zone to try and win it before attempting the field goal. I'm not sure if Grunkemeyer rushed the throw, didn't set his feet, what it was, but he overthrows Ross pretty badly. Falls incomplete. Then the next play, out of timeouts, with I think it was 9 seconds left. Grunkemeyer rolls to his left. It was almost like they're trying to set up an option type play to Nicholas Singleton. Grunkemeyer goes to throw it to Singleton, though. He throws it backwards, so it winds up a fumble. Goes out of bounds 3 yards behind, and they have to throw the Hail Mary, and the Hail Mary falls incomplete. So, again, it was a very frustrating loss for Penn State. But there's still some positives here. So, these last 3 or 4 minutes here, we'll focus on some of those positives. I mean, first and foremost, if you get this effort these next 3 games, you're playing a Michigan State team who isn't any good, Nebraska, who in my opinion is pretty average to begin with, and now without Dylan Raiola for the rest of the year, and then Rutgers, who's just not good. If you come out with the same effort and energy and all of that you had today, you're going to win those 3 games. At least you should, and you probably at least finish the year at 6-6. So you don't finish the year losing 7, 8, 9 in a row, and still finish with without a losing record. Get the bowl eligibility. Not that I would expect this team to accept the bowl bid by any means, but still, that's one positive. Again, I thought the defensive line tremendous today, their best game of the season, and you're getting ready to play 3 teams who do not have good offensive line. So again, if the defensive line plays today, like they did today, against Michigan State, Nebraska, and Rutgers, you're gonna have a great chance to win those. And then also Ethan Grunkemeyer, just again, I thought by far his best start. He continues to show a lot of poise, shows some solid pocket presence, good footwork in the pocket, not being afraid to throw it downfield, stretch the field, trust his arm, give his receivers a chance to make plays, even though, a lot of times those plays aren't getting made. But I thought that, again, if you can continue to see that growth from Grunkemeyer, you don't know if he's going to be here next year or not. I mean, odds are whoever the next coach is going to bring a quarterback with them. Not that it doesn't mean that Grunkemeyer couldn't stick around and win the job. I mean, the new coach coming in may, hey, see what Grunkemeier's put on tape. Could be someone who recruited him when he's in high school and say, hey, this is a kid that I know I can work with. But you still want to see that growth. And right now, if you're a Penn State fan, the rest of the way, you want to see this growth from these young guys because they're not all going to transfer. So some of them are going to stick around. So you want to see that growth. And I thought we saw some good stuff from a lot of the young guys today. But again, 27-24, it just another gut-wrenching, just gut punch, rip your heart out kind of loss against the top 5 team for Penn State. But it is what it is at this point in the season. You're 3-6. You haven't beaten a Power 4 team. You haven't won a Big Ten game. You haven't won a game since September. So you're grasping at straws here. But again, I thought this was just a tremendous effort from this team against what is undoubtedly one of the best teams in the country. They outplayed Indiana. They had them on the ropes in the fourth quarter, with a chance to run the clock out and win the game, get a defensive stop and win the game. But, and this is where I think the program as a whole needs somewhat of a culture. I don't want to say reset because that's not a culture issue, but a shift in it because we've just seen so many times in the last decade. I mean, 2017 Ohio State, 2018 Ohio State, 2019 Minnesota, today, the Oregon game this year, the Orange Bowl last year against Notre Dame, just so many chances where against these top 5, top 10 caliber opponents, you have a chance to win the game in the fourth quarter, have a chance to win the game in the closing minutes, and you just don't do it. You find a way to lose it. And in today's case, one of those games where you found a way to rip defeat away from the jaws of victory. But we'll get ready to wrap it up here. Again, thank you for joining us. Like, subscribe, share, give us your super chats, your super likes. Dylan and I will be back Wednesday to preview next Saturday's matchup with Michigan State. Till then, enjoy the rest of your college football Saturday. Maybe Wednesday we'll have some coaching updates. Hasn't been a whole lot in the last week or so, but if you are a Penn State fan, I would say tune into ABC right now because Missouri against Texas A&M, I think it's at least safe to say that Penn State's top 2 targets are probably coaching against each other right now in Columbia. But have a great rest of your day, everybody, and thank you for joining us.